This is Learning to Dad.
I'm the cool dad. That's my thing.
With Tyler Ross.
What I do have are a very particular set of skills.
I'm gonna have fun, and you're gonna have fun.
All right. Hello and welcome to Learning to Dad. I'm Tyler Ross, and today's guest is Brian Nagel. Thanks for spending time with me, man.
Tyler, I'm really excited to be here with you. Appreciate you having me on. Hopefully today we can learn and grow together.
Yeah, that's the point. And I think it was fun the way that we kind of got to messaging back and forth. We found each other on Instagram. I looked at you and found that I said, I think I recognize this guy from somewhere. So after a little further investigation, which by happenstance, my 4-year-old daughter's favorite song is Katy Perry, Roar. And there you are, the Katy Perry's boyfriend in that. And that was 5 years ago. So you've done a whole lot since then. Catch me up, man. What are you doing right now? You got Steelhouse Productions, movies.
That was a big launching, kind of a launching pad for me as an actor and for an entertainer. But in those 5 years, I mean, I couldn't have imagined a better life. I've gotten married. I've got 2 baby girls now. I've got 2 feature films under my belt. And, it looks like things are going to continue down the path of growing and expanding on what I'm trying to do. So it's just been a whirlwind. I mean, I think it's been, like you said, 5 years, but it seems like it was just yesterday. And I look back and I'm like, what the heck happened in 5 years? As every dad talks about, it's like the appearance of time changes. And it has certainly changed for me. And I'm still learning how to deal with that change, and I think that's one of the struggles that I personally am going through.
Yeah. So you just had your second baby girl in the last, 2-3 weeks?
3 weeks. Yeah. It was, again, like we'd spoken before, it was a whirlwind. She was due May 29th and she came on May 20th. And we had a wedding the night before.
Oh,
so.
Wow.
And my wife was in the wedding. So there was all this anticipation about, okay, I'm in the wedding. Is this baby going to make it? And we're dancing at the wedding. We're having a good time, having a drink or two. And it's a great story. My wife comes home, and I kind of go to bed. She wakes up like an hour or two later and she's like, yeah, I think this baby's coming. She was having some contractions on the floor, but they were starting to be like 5 minutes apart. So it's like 3:00. She wakes me up. And then we get to the hospital at 4, and the baby's born at 5:22.
Unbelievable. That's wonderful
Yeah.
how quick that was.
Yeah. My wife is such a champ, and, it amazes me, like, how she kind of held out, and she's like, yeah, I don't want to wake him. Like, she was concerned about me. Like, that's how awesome she is. And she wakes me up. We get to the hospital, and it was literally 2 pushes. And I don't know if you were there. I'm sure you were, the birth of your children, but it's such a grueling process just to go get registered and to get into it. And the way that she did it, I was just like, and compared to the first one, of course, every child's delivery into the world is totally a different experience. So for me, this one was just like a blink of an eye and she's here,
Yeah. That's so cool. I want to talk about, like, you're coming from Cleveland and your move out to LA, but while we're talking about this baby you just had and the birth, one of my friends actually in LA just had a baby a couple weeks ago, and their labor story was traumatic. I mean,
oh God.
Talk to me about your experience, just so fresh. Like, where were you in the room? What'd you do? All these things.
So the traumatic those traumatic stories scare us all. Yeah. I want to put that out there. And I also want to say that those are the ones that kind of reverberate through our circles and through our tribes. Mm-hmm. But it is the most beautiful experience. And, I felt that my role in the birth was literally just to be my wife's champion. And one story that I like to tell specifically about my first birth is how special it was. Like, so we had the baby and I laid in bed with my wife for 2 or 3 days to help her heal and to just be right there with her. But specifically relating back to this most recent pregnancy, which was less than 3 weeks ago, you know, it's one of those things where I go there and it's, what can I do to help my wife feel more comfortable, be more confident, not be worried about what I'm seeing, the imagery that's going through my head, because I think that women are so caught up in how they look all the time and how does my husband see me physically. And I personally try to take an approach to see people from the inside out, you know, and that comes from their heart and their brain and their soul. And the beauty that my wife exudes, especially in these moments of stress and these moments of intensity, is just, it's awesome experience. So I'm there, I'm holding her hand, I'm just saying, breathe, stay calm. You know, so we got there and she was 6 centers dilated, and the contractions were basically every like 2 to 3 minutes. And they said, hey, this baby's coming. They called the OB, she's coming in. And my wife's like, you know, the thing with birth is it going to be a 24-hour birth, or is it going to be 12 hours? Is it going to be an hour? Is it going to be 10 minutes? We don't know. And that's that uncertainty that scares us. So my wife's like, you know what? I'm going to try an epidural, you know, and we got one for the first one. So the guy comes in, and for those of you dads out there that don't know, basically what they do is they stick a big thick needle in the spine, and then they have to stick a plastic tube in that hole, and then they inject it with saline, and then comes the medicine. Point being, it's a process. It takes time. And my wife never got the epidural because there wasn't enough time. So she did it full on, experiencing, you know, the pain, which to me was always a goal, but that's just kind of my approach. I'm always about like holistic and natural as much as possible. And my wife is a nurse at Cedars-Sinai, so she is she's educated on the medical practices and that kind of thing. So, but I'm always saying, hey, this is your thing. I want to trust you and support whatever it is you want to do. If you want an epidural, if you want whatever, do it, because I trust you and I'm here to support whatever you need to make this situation as comfortable as possible for you. So the epidural never hit, and her water had not even broken at this point. She's laying on the bed for maybe 20 minutes at this point, and the water broke, and she explained it to me as the most painful thing that she'd ever experienced. And to me, what I was thinking in my head is, okay, what her body is telling her is that this baby's ready to come right now, and it's going to be this crazy, painful experience. But the body and the mind of a woman is more incredible than we all can, as men, we can experience, because we don't know. But you know, there's these chemicals that the brain sends to her body that says, hey, listen, you're going to have this baby. I'm going to help you through it. I'm going to make sure that there's pain blockers and all this awesome chemistry that happens in a woman's body to get her through this, having a baby. And to me, to see her experiencing that, it was so beautiful. And it was right after the baby was born. I took a picture. I said, hey, I want to take the first picture of you with your baby. And it was like 2 minutes after. And she had this look on her face, like she was just in this, you know what I mean? Like she's just like seeing stars. And to me, that captured the beauty of the moment, because her body had her prepared to have this baby. And she did it so, like, you know, if grace even, I don't know if that fits the situation, but to me, it was graceful, even though there's grunting and yelling and chaos and stress and all this energy. It was graceful and it was beautiful. So it was, you know, if a man has an opportunity to be there with his wife and to hold her hand and to support her, her body is made for that. So, you know, if there's a piece of advice that I have for that is just to support, you know. But it was, you know, it's a mind-blowing experience. It's hard for me to, you know, the first one I think it changes you. The second one has a different effect, you know, and I'm sure you can relate. Yeah,
most definitely. Well, how far apart are you two?
So my first one is going to be 2 in July, and my second one was just born. So they're about 21 months apart, I think.
Gotcha. Actually, what, July what?
July 25th.
That's why I'm July 9th. My sister is May 20th. That would have been too weird if we were
Nice.
just there.
Well,
But
it's weird. I mean, I think there's some, the universe works itself out in the way that there's these connections of your sister having the same birthday. And, so my first daughter, she was born on my wife's grandpa's birthday, and my second daughter's time was like one of my grandparents' birthdays or something. It's just, it's so weird how there's so much connection, and it's beyond us, I think.
well, listening to you talk about being a dad, and your Instagram page is Brian Nagel 8, being on your Instagram page and exchanging messages with you, you seem to have this consistent sense of kind of awe about the way your wife was, the way she is, the kids that you have. Has that been like an orientation that you've always had, or is that something you worked to kind of get to?
I think it's something that as I grew into a man, it was something that I have done a lot of self-development, and obviously you have as well. And I think many of your guests have as well, listening to the books that they read and to the way that they try to explore who they are as a person and how they can grow the way they want to grow. And that's something that has been very important to me. But one of my cornerstones of belief is gratitude. And I think that when I approach life, everything has to be with gratitude. You can sit there and say, oh, my Instagram's this and it's not getting that many likes, and this person doesn't like me, and those things, you can focus on those. But what I've always had this mentality, and I think, gratitude is just so important, in so many aspects, but it's something that I've worked on over the years, specifically probably the last 5 to 7 years. But I will say there's a residing story that kind of resonates with me as a child. And when I was in, I don't know, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, my mom got me this poster. It's like when I was a kid, when we were kids, it's like you got a poster. It was like, dude, I'm hanging this up in my room. This is so cool, right? Whether it was Batman or Thor or whoever it was during the day.
Yeah.
But I got this poster, and it was this monkey, and he was like doing the splits, and he's wearing like this Hawaiian shirt, and he's got his glasses on, and it says attitude is everything.
Yeah.
And it might only hung in my room for a year or two. I probably outgrew the imagery that was with it, but the saying attitude is everything stuck with me. And that was just a resonating moment that I think helped formulate my thought processes in life. And, again, there was another one in 6th grade where my teacher, people had to say one thing about a person that they liked, right? And my teacher, my 6th grade teacher, Mrs. Higby, told me, hey, what I like about you is you're always smiling, whether you're talking to somebody or you just have this pleasant energy. I don't see myself as that person, but I'm happy to be that person.
Yeah.
But those resonating moments, they have an impact, and I think you have to choose those moments in life to see them and see how important they are. So attitude and gratitude. You read these books and they tell you, when I feel depressed, and I do sometimes, I wake up and I think about what I'm thankful for, and so I choose to kind of live in awe, like you said. And sometimes when I forget what I'm doing in life, that's what I have to do. And it brings me right back to my center, So
That's awesome. In fact, I'll share this with you because this is today. This is my gratitude list for the day.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's a nice movement on Instagram. I think it's called Daily Gratitude is the link. I haven't kept up with posting it, but it's a great way. It's like better than a cup of coffee, getting your mind right and trying to stay cool. Just 10 little things from hot coffee to the health of your family. It's great. So I can appreciate that.
Yeah, and I think that, there are so many people out there that struggle with, in our day and age, with depression, anxiety, and just the struggles of this day and age that we live in, the competitiveness and but what I've always told myself is that if I can practice gratitude, that I'm going to be okay. And I want others to go out there and to practice these things too, because I know that it will change your life, And that's my goal, is to help others and to inspire, So I'm glad you're doing it, and I'm glad you're sharing that message, because, when I see your page and I see the way that you kind of do things, I'm like, dude, this is somebody that I can see, and I can look up to, and you can be a hero of mine. So I appreciate, what you're doing. That's, I want to reiterate to people, like, knowledge is such power, and just knowing that if you have this capability to write 5 things down that you appreciate, and I think we all do for the most part, it'll change your life.
Yeah.
So
I'm grateful for that. Thank you for saying that, Brian. And you're obviously making an impact too, because you've got an extraordinary following, just in terms of, people wanting to hear the message that you're trying to share, which is a wildly positive message. Do you think that you were raised in a way that kind of helped you, like, cultivate that inside of yourself? Did your parents treat you in a particular way?
It's weird, because I think everyone has a story. And, mine has some dark chapters, like many, and I think people don't realize that about me, or don't realize that about everybody. Like, everybody has somebody in their family, whether it's cousins or friends or associates or whoever, that maybe struggle with addiction or sickness or obesity or depression. And, so I had some real dark chapters in my life, and that's not what this podcast is about, so I won't get into it. I think that kind of, those experiences drove me to who I am today. Mm-hmm. And, kind of going back to what we talked about just a few minutes ago, when somebody sits there and says, well, I don't have this, but you do have these other things to be appreciative. So I've kind of just, again, like, used that as my thought process to get through my dark days. Now, I had 2 great parents. They got divorced when I was a young man. And I think, what we learn from our parents is what not to do for our children. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying not to do some of the things that they did. Yeah. But aside from what they did wrong, they did so many things right. And I have 2 great parents. My dad's remarried. I have a wonderful stepmother, and I have a wonderful support system. In general, I have aunts and uncles that love me. I had great grandparents, so I think that there's a tribe, there's a circle of people who help raise me and show me many things, and I've looked at all those people in my life, whether it was my uncle who said, hey, listen, you keep that glass half full and you're going to be okay. Or it was my grandma who just loved me and hugged me and smiled and spoiled me, or whether it was my mom, who her strength was just always attacking me with love. My mom is just got the biggest heart. Now you look at my dad, he's a blue collar guy, and his method is hard work. Mm-hmm. It's, dedication to job. And, so you pick and choose those things that you learn from people, right? And the gifts that I've been given from those people are just incredible. So I always tell people, I consider myself a very, very hardworking person that's extremely loving and spiritual. And I talk about the loving spiritual side I got from my mom, yet my business entrepreneurial sense, my hardworking ethics come from my dad. So it's this yin and yang that were presented to me as a child. And I feel like I've been gifted both of those. Incredibly blessed to have those 2 people that showed me such strong viewpoints that brought me to who I am today. So I think, to answer your question, I have been given so many gifts as a child to get me where I am today, but needless to say, there were also some things that I had to work through, so yeah, I was very blessed with a strong upbringing in so many ways.
Yeah, that's a potent combination of hard work and discipline with spirituality, gratitude, love. That's awesome. Tell me about being in Ohio and the decision to come out to LA.
Ohio is, it's that Midwest charm. I was born and raised on the west side of Cleveland. Couldn't think of a better place to grow up. The environment there is just, it's safe. It's, the weather's not the best, but there's so much there's so much to offer in Cleveland, and I loved it so much. I went to school originally to be a pilot. I went to Kent State University and studied that for a few years. And what I kind of ultimately decided was, being a pilot is kind of like moving up that corporate ladder, right? It's you work about 5 to 10 years. After that, you've got a good schedule. You're making good bills. You're doing what's right. But I wanted something a little bit more. I don't say I wanted uncertainty, because I didn't want uncertainty. I wanted, let's say, more opportunity to have control of my life. And so I was like, you know what? I think I'm just gonna go the business route. I'd always been an entrepreneur. When I was in grade school and high school, I had my own law business. And before I went to college, I had saved up $20,000 of my own hard-earned money.
Wow.
Which, at the time and among my circle and among my community was a lot of money. And so, but it was that entrepreneurial spirit that I really appreciated, and it was kind of who I was. And so when I graduated from school, I said, you know what, whatever it is I want to do in life, there's probably going to be more opportunity in LA. The sun is always shining. I'm an outdoors person. And my brother was out here. My brother he's my business partner. He's one of my biggest champions of life. And, so him and I have worked together since we've been out here. But so I graduated from school out here, and, just to kind of continue on with that story, I worked in marketing for about 6 years, and always kind of wanted to get into the industry. Mm-hmm. And it's one of those things where my rational, I'm a very logical person. It said, hey, listen, if you want to be an actor or a model, you can't do that because there's 10 million other guys. And if you've ever been out to LA, you come out here and, you walk into a room and every guy's got awesome biceps, a great beard, great hair, great this. And that put a lot of fear in me. But needless to say, I knew that I had to I set myself up financially with just a small cushion. And I just got done working 56 days straight. And I said, you know what, I'm going to go out and see if I can find some modeling jobs. And I had done some things before, but I found a job working for Skechers as a foot model, believe it or not. Yeah. And this was like 7 or 8 years ago. So I've been a foot model for Skechers, and that has been a great substantial bill payer for me for quite a while. And I think the point is that, I jumped off the ledge, and, I was afraid, I was scared, and now I'm fully in it, and I'm still scared, but I'm moving forward, So that was kind of what brought me out to LA was just seeking opportunity. And, I guess the Hollywood lights, but I was young and energetic. So
somebody that young, energetic Brian that's out there right now thinking about cutting loose from Western Cleveland, coming out to LA, chase the lights. Like what's something you tell them to help get them prepared for what they're in for?
What I've come to believe and what I've come to preach to people who say, hey, because I get hit up all the time on people who want to be an actor on Instagram or, I tell them, hey, it's just like any other business. If you want to be a pilot, if you want to be a doctor, if you want to be a real estate agent, you just don't get your license and say, I'm it. It's about the journey. It's about putting in that hard work. And sometimes, the most famous doctors, the most famous actors, they don't know what they're doing. They feel lost. They feel scared. They feel all these emotions, whether they talk about it or not. But it's something that you just have to put your nose to the grindstone, continue to work hard, continue to believe in your purpose and your vision. And, you'll get nuggets of truth that say, hey, this is the path that you should be on. And if you continue to seek, you will find, it's like the old adage, seek and you will find. So you just got to do it. And listen, if you're a doctor, you're not going to have 300 patients the day you get out of grad school. Mm-hmm. You've got to do your practice and you've got to network and do all these things. So it takes time. And sometimes it takes some doctors. I don't know why I always use doctors as reference, because they make a lot of money and they're vital to our society. But, sometimes it takes 20 years, sometimes it takes 10, sometimes it takes a couple years. Sometimes these people, they get big breaks, and that's fine. That's their journey. And you have to just say, hey, that's not my journey. My journey is my journey, and this is where I'm at, So you can do it. Anybody can do it, and for those who want to be an actor or who want to be in this industry, everybody brings a unique skill set, whether it is into whatever field you're going into, whether it's business or marketing. You have every person has a specific skill set that makes them special. And if you can learn how to utilize those, you'll find a place in this world where you can serve, and that's important. So, and yeah, I've got some things personally figured out, but I still feel on a daily basis, like, what am I doing? Like, how am I married and have 2 kids and I make movies and, but that's what I do, so.
I think that little sense of discomfort, that little idea of having a little nugget of paranoia in your brains at all time, like drives you and keeps you on your toes.
Yeah, definitely does. Definitely does.
Tell me about Steelhouse Productions. It looks like you involved in making a movie with some big names in it. Denise Richards, Misha Barton.
Yeah. So,
of course, you.
Yeah. So Steelhouse Productions was a company that my brother and I started. We called it Steelhouse because my dad was a steel worker, and he instilled that, that cornerstone of just hard grit. And, and this, as you know, is probably one of the more difficult industries to really break into. And it's going to take a house made of steel to survive. So Steelhouse Productions is the production company where, outside of some of the independent modeling and independent acting that I do on a day-to-day basis, I'm working with my brother. We do commercial work. We do, industrial videos. We've done 2 movies, one being Clown Town. That was our first featured film. And then the most recent one that we did was with Misha Barton and Denise Richards. And, again, so our business is about 6 years old, and it has grown steadily for 6 years. And I think that as an entrepreneur, it's like, my business isn't making millions yet, right? And it's like, we're like, how do I get to those millions? How do I get to those huge paychecks? Or we're always seeking those things. But I think we have to kind of be rooted and just say, hey, we're growing, we're doing this. And we have a plan for further growth. We've got another movie that we're working on. It's much different than what we did the first couple movies. The first couple movies we did were in the horror thriller genre. Mm-hmm. And that's where a lot of companies break into the industry, just because, you can make a horror thriller with smaller names on tighter budgets, and it can still get out there and still be successful. If you make a drama, it's going to be a little bit more hard saying, oh, this drama starring Brian Nagel, who nobody knows, you want to get a product out there with some bigger names. But, it's a work in progress, and we're growing and learning. And it's really exciting to have a company where you work with a family member. Do you work with family members?
Yeah, my father and I work together.
Okay. So, my dad just retired like a month ago, so he has worked on both of our movies with us. And I'm sure you
awesome.
Can share, when you working with my brother, it's been such an incredible opportunity because he's a great guy, and he's got a lot of the work ethic that I do. Mm-hmm. But I think there's just this drive to just make this happen. And we have a shared goal, that, we want to employ people, and we want to help them pursue their dreams. And, so Steelhouse is if it's probably my third child,
Yeah.
So, It's just every day, wake up, what can I do for Steelhouse? How do I get that next movie moving a little bit faster? And, it's one of those things where you just keep putting your nose to the grindstone and looking for progress and seeking stories to tell and, that kind of thing.
That's awesome. Well, I know being an entrepreneur, being an actor, being a model, being in production, you got auditions, call times, callbacks, production meetings, and they're at any given time. I don't know if people understand that a 5 a.m. call time might mean that you're not home till midnight if you go into the
right.
So how do you manage that time with your, growing family?
Right. So, it's, again, I was thinking about some of the things that, kind of I hold true as a human. And one of the residing words that I love to use on a daily basis is balance.
Yeah.
Balance is so important to me. And I've learned that through years of being somebody who loves to work out, working on just your balance when you're lifting weights and that kind of thing. It's so crucial because all your muscles are working together. Even if you're doing a chest press, are your feet planted on the ground? Are they providing, balance support for your core, for your chest, for your arms, for your forearms, for your hands to lift that bar? So balance to me is so important. And yes, I do put in 12, 15-hour days quite a bit, but I also put in quite a bit of time with my family. So in order for me to achieve balance, it kind of goes back to my attitude when it comes to my wife and my family. And it's one of those things where if my wife asks me to do something, it's not about, well, I've got this other thing to do, or, I'm kind of tired. It's yes. You know what, honey, I'm going to work on pushing the trash can in or taking the trash out more efficiently or doing whatever it is you need me to do for you. So I think balance is just the short answer to that. I try to find balance in my relationships with my daughters, with my wife, with my work relationships, in my health. And when I feel that all those things are balanced, they all are working in the right direction. They're all growing, right? We want to see growth. So I think that's my answer. And it's hard sometimes because my wife is so incredible because, when I was working on the last movie, Toy Box, it's 6 days a week. And as one of the lead producers and one of the lead actors, it's no shorter than, a 15-hour day. And she's so patient with me and says, hey, you know what? I know that this is what makes you a happy dad at home. I know this is what makes you a good husband. Me letting you do what you're passionate about is what I'm going to let you do your passions. And if it requires you to be gone for 3 weeks, I'm going to give that to you. And she knows that I'm going to come back stronger, more in love, and more supportive for her. So I think that, she's the yin to my yang, and she's the reason that I do this and that I can do this. Her support, I don't know. I can't say enough about her because she's such a crucial part to who I am now. I just feel like she deserves the accolades when it comes to me being able to be a great dad and do that, because she says, yes, you can go to that meeting at 7:00 at night, even though it's at a bar, you know what I mean? And yes, we're going to have a drink. But I know plenty of people in their relationships. Well, it's Tuesday night. We're supposed to watch Handmaid's Tale on Hulu tonight. Well, she knows that my industry doesn't work that way, and she's so patient. And I think it's from my part, it's also being aware that, hey, you know what? You've been gone 3 nights this week. it's time to have a family date and take the family out for ice cream or go to the park. So I think it's an awareness of being able to balance those things. And by no means
so many things. Yeah.
Yeah.
So many great important things. I'm sitting here like nodding my head like, dude.
I try not to be a jabbermouth, but maybe I had too much coffee this morning.
No, I'm with you though. I mean, the importance of understanding from the relationship standpoint what fulfills your partner, and that your wife is aware enough to see that you are not your best you if you're not doing the things that fulfill you, that allow you to be energetic and loving and present while you are there. A book where Gary Keller talks about counterbalance. It's never 50-50. It might be 90-10. But then it swings back to 90-10 the other way too.
Right.
And it's unusual that people have demands or schedules or even desires to participate in a life like that, where you and I work 80 hours a week so that, heaven forbid, we didn't have to work 40. Like, that'd be a horrible existence for us.
I know. It's so weird to think that like, people are like, why do you do that? Like, it's just the love and the passion that drives me, And you
said something incredibly important that also resonated, just taking the trash out, like being aware of what your partner needs too, because mine is the trash, like it sounds like yours might be.
Yeah.
The dishes. So actively having to work on those things. Right. How do you guys work those things out, and how's your relationship with your wife changed since you started having kids?
So my wife is a very unselfish person, I think, as you can probably tell by me talking about her. Mm-hmm. And I think that her being unselfish, and I think that, I didn't get married till I was 30 years old. I think that I kind of got my selfishness out in my 20s. Yeah. Back in some of my previous relationships, there was some jealousy and just some unhealthy habits. And now it's like, if my wife says she needs to go to Maui for a week, I'm just going to be like, go to Maui for a week. It doesn't matter to me. If that's what you need to be the best wife, or you need to live your best life, I'm here to support you, whatever that means. Because I know at the end of the day, that's going to bring her home, and her kisses are going to be that much sweeter to me. Hold on one second. I got to wipe off my lens. This is really bugging me.
Yeah, sure.
I'm like, do I look blurry? I don't know if that helped or not, but, and then in having the kids, again, I think it's like, it's reshifting that balance, right? It might've been with one child, it might've been 30-30-30 or 20-20-60, whatever it was. And now we have this new being in our circle, in our tribe, that we have to rebalance into the equation. And so, I understand that at this point in time, my wife and I, our intimate connection is not going to be the strongest it's ever been. So I have to accept that as a man. I can't be selfish and say, I need this. I have to sit there and say, there's just not enough time right now for me to have those things, and I have to give that time in order for her to give her time to my baby. And again, seeing the big picture, I realize that that's more important, that my child is given that love and that care so that she can grow into a human that's going to help change this world in a better direction. And I know I'll get mine. Whether it's 10 years down the road or whatever the case may be. So I think that, there's a lot of sacrifice that's involved in life. And I think that in this day and age, maybe sometimes it's not really talked about enough I love David Goggins. He's so hardcore, sometimes too hardcore for me. Yeah. But David Goggins is a guy that inspires me because he kind of has that grit that I believe in. And he has an attitude that I can also assimilate with, that says sometimes you have to dig deep. You got to find the dirt. You've got to find those wounds that are deep inside of our ourselves, and you got to figure out how to heal them. And kind of relating back to the question is how do you find the time? Sometimes you just got to make that sacrifice, you know. Those sacrifices that I might make now, they could change the world in 10 years. Now, will I know whether it was the sacrifice I made yesterday or today or tomorrow? Who knows?
Yeah.
But the point is that I believe that those sacrifices that I'm making for, let's say, the benefit of my relationship with my wife, the sacrifices that I'm making now are helping my children, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's not to say that my wife and I have this terrible relationship right now, because we don't. It's great. It's fantastic. It's everything that it needs to be in this moment. But there's not a lot of date time. There's not a lot of alone time. And that's okay, you know? So that's kind of what I've come to grow through and to learn. And, you know, for new parents out there, it's a learning process. You know, parenting one child is much different than parenting two children. And you have 3 or 4 children?
I've got 2. Yeah.
You've only got 2. Okay.
Yep.
Are you guys thinking about 3 yet?
Dude, the conversation has been an emotional roller coaster. A week ago, my wife wanted me to get a vasectomy, and 2 days ago, she wanted to have a 3rd kid. So like it's like, so right now we're in we're on the tarmac waiting.
Right. Yeah. It's excuse me. Hold on one second.
Oh yeah, sure. Well, you touched on something I think is incredibly important. That's a theme that I think, like you said, goes overlooked. That people that are wired in a more entrepreneurial way, or who have other ambitions outside of whatever it is that they do, once they get introduced to a family, a wife and a kid, suddenly they feel like they can't go record that podcast or chase that other side hustle or do this hobby. And I would posit that you just have to prioritize and be more efficient, because you found ways to have 2 kids, satisfying relationship, a production company, and all the other things that you're doing. So like, is there you know, a little golden nugget that you'd offer somebody that's about to enter into that world?
You know, again, I'm figuring it out as I go. And it's hard. It really is hard, you know, because, so, you know, I've with this new second child that I have, you know, what I find myself asking myself is like, how am I going to do this? You know, and it's scary to me. And it's the same thought that I have of, how am I going to be an actor? How am I going to be a producer? You know? But I know that if I put my heart into it, I can do it. And I think that I attack it with balance and you know, and I think there's an instant gratification that we're all seeking these days, because everything is about instant gratification. And what I've always been taught through these thoughts and through these emotions and these processes is that patience is one of the, and I'm a patient person. I am patient with people. I'm patient with my friends and my family. But I feel that I'm least impatient with myself, meaning, you know, hey, you're not where you want to be yet. You know what I mean? So when it comes to me trying to figure out how to be a dad to 2 children, how to be a great husband, how to be a producer and have this Steelhouse Productions company, you know, I've got to just be patient. And it's such a hard thing to do, because it's a constant practice. You know, you're patient one day and the next day you're super impatient. Mm-hmm. And then you're impatient for a week, and then it's like you're patient for 3 weeks, and then it's like, I got to get this done now. Like, it's got to happen now. It's like, just calm down. Like, you're in process. You're in this journey. Like, my wife and I so going back to the 5 years that I've had. So 5 years ago, I got married. And so my wife and I asked my wife to marry me on the set of my first movie, Clown Town, in Cleveland, right?
Yeah.
So from that moment, I asked my wife to marry me on set. We got married. My first movie came out. I had a baby. I had a second baby. I made my second movie, and I just bought my house. And I just bought my house. So I just bought my house about 6 months ago, and I did a pretty big renovation. I did all new electrical, all new lighting, all new floors, about 40% new drywall.
Yeah.
I put 100% new kitchen in it, and I did all the work myself.
Yeah.
I had my cousin come out and help me for 6 months, or for 6 weeks, I should say. But so in these 5 years, these are all big things that have happened to me, right? And I'm looking back through this process and thinking, dude, like, your journey is so beautiful and you have so much to be grateful for. Like, you've done so much. And to some people, this is maybe a lifetime of work, right? For me, it's just my journey these last 5 years. And I know that I have so much more to offer this world and to inspire others with. But going through this process, it's been crazy stressful. But to look back as kind of and see the big picture, like, wow, like, this is cool, man. Like, you're doing everything you say you want to do. You want to build a house for your family. That's basically what I did.
Yeah.
And to say that I'm raising 2 kids in one of the most expensive cities in the world, being a producer and owning a production company and being an actor and model, like, I know how hard that is. You're doing it, Brian. And like, I have to give myself these motivational pep talks, but kind of, again, I try to think about how can I relate to our listeners and like, because I know that, like, hey, listen, I have these fears. I have these anxieties like everybody else. Like, can I do this? Like, how long can I do this? Am I going to be able to put my kids through college? Like, but I can't focus on the future and I can't focus on the past. I can only focus on the present and say, what can I do for my family today? What can I do for myself? What can I do for my wife? What can I do for my production company? How can I inspire Tyler? How can I inspire his listeners? And how can I make a positive impact? So, this journey's just been so incredible. Yeah, I tend to take this on like this weird journey of, you ask me a question and then I go down these little rabbit holes of answers. So
No, I'm only.
I hope I'm offering some goodness to those. So.
Oh yeah, I want to ask you about that particularly, because it seems like a lot of the rabbit holes you go down to are focused on putting attention on other people and being of service and adding value. So when you are in a stage of self-doubt that you feel like you need to get yourself out of, it seems to me that that's your way of doing it. Of how can I help somebody else? Is that true? And are there other things that you do, like writing goals or lists or meditating or some practice that helps you overcome self-doubt in those moments?
It's all very true. It's all very true. There's a million tools out there that we can all use, and I think every person has to find what tools they can use to get through their journey. Mm-hmm. So yeah, meditation is a big thing for me. Health and fitness are like, so before I was married, health and fitness were like just one of the top echelons of my game, right? I had the tightest 6-pack and I was running, 30 to 50 miles a week and just eating spinach, eggs, and every single day for breakfast. And there's so many facets of life that I believe are important to constructing a full life, right? So say your question again, because I'm already down the rabbit hole and I can't.
Well, just like practices you might have.
So I think some practices that I have are, gratitude, listing. Sometimes one of my practices is listing 5 things that I'm grateful for, either before I go to bed or when I wake up. Mm-hmm. In some of these moments that I do find myself struggling, I chime back to this list of 5 things that I can be grateful for. But I think, health and fitness are so crucial. I think so many people out there that struggle with some of these things, they don't realize that food is our medicine. And if we're putting good food in our bodies are going to feel good. If our bodies feel good, we're going to be able to accomplish more things that we want to accomplish, whether it's just being a good husband, and that means cleaning the house for your wife. You're going to have better energy to clean the house for your wife if you're eating good food. Yeah. And I think it's so crucial to drive that point home with my people and try to inspire them through that. And granted, it's been, having 2 kids, and going through this most recent journey of buying a house and all this newness. I'm still trying to find myself. I'm still trying to find my new rhythm. And some days I wake up and I feel like I'm in a rhythm. I wake up, I get up and I do like a 20-minute stretch. Right now I've been reading Wayne Dyer for the last year, which I'm not sure if you've heard of him, but he's an incredible
know him well. Saw him in
teacher.
Tampa live. Yeah.
Oh man, that's incredible. A friend of mine back in college introduced me to him, and here he is still with me, inspiring me. So, there's so many tools out there for people to utilize, whether it's you look up YouTube and just Google search motivational speeches. Sometimes that gets me going in the day. Yeah. And sometimes it's a cup of coffee. Sometimes it's my five points of gratitude. Sometimes it's a workout. And some days, I don't get to do anything, and those days, maybe I'm not my best, but I chug through them and I know that tomorrow's going to be another day. I have a strong sense of faith that God has a plan for me, and what I'm doing is the right thing. So I try to follow that path that God puts in front of me. And, wherever that takes me is where I'm willing to go. Sometimes I think there's people get so caught up in their ideas that, hey, listen, I want to be an Instagram influencer and that's what I'm going to do. But God keeps telling you, hey, listen, your calling is to be a YouTuber or to be a doctor or to be this or so, I try to follow what signs he puts in front of me, and so there was a book I read called The Alchemist by Paul Coelho, which I'm not sure have you read it? I haven't read it.
I'm familiar slightly with it.
Okay. It's an incredible book, international bestseller. But one of the things of the guys in the story, he has these, they're called omens, right? And these omens are these signs from whoever, God, whatever you believe in, the earth, the power, the energy that life puts in front of you. And if you look for the omens in life, you will see them. And right now, my omens are my family. My family is what's in front of me. And it's like, that's what needs all my energy. So I'm putting, so much energy into my family. So yeah, that's kind of one of my things that I look for is the omens in life. And that kind of is a guiding star for me.
Yeah, that I love that. And what you said about, I'm not even going to try to paraphrase it, but talking about like having to be open to seeing the omen, without getting the blinders on that you're going to be the Instagram influencer. If you detach yourself from that, maybe the YouTube or the doctor route suddenly becomes the easy downstream, hop in the canoe and you're there version of you.
Right.
If you're available to it and open to it, which is really cool that you've made that acknowledgement and sharing it. But I want to ask you a couple of short answer questions, like
Sure.
Dad, parenthood, short answers. What's an impact that your kids have made on you?
That's a tough question.
Yeah.
Because there's been so many impacts. If there was one strong impact, and it's the first thing that comes to my mind, I think it's just that, man, it's hard for my brain to stick on one impactful thing. It's to just be in the moment. I think that's where it's at. You just be in this moment right now. Right now, I'm here with Tyler. Just talk to him. Just speak from your heart. Be, let it flow. Just be in the moment, because kids are always in the moment. They might piss you off and they might be in a bad mood, but then literally 3 seconds later, they forgot about that bad mood. They let go of all that emotion that was tied in that baggage, and they're just back in that moment. They're playing with their toys and they're loving their dad. It's like, they don't care that you just yelled at them. They're like, I'm so happy. You're my dad. Like, it's all good. So, and I think that, that's where we need to be, is in this moment, because that's all you have. The past is the past, the future, who knows? Yeah. And if you're just enjoying this moment of the sunshine, talking to you, you can only be in your best state of mind, So
that's great. Do you know who Grant Cardone is?
No, I don't. Not yet.
Yeah, he's a real estate guy, really bombastic personality. But he said something that totally resonated with me that might make sense to you as an entrepreneur, that like somebody asked him, how much time do you spend with your kids? And he said, 100% of my time. He said, how much on your business? He said, 100% of my time. He said, when I'm in my business, it's got 100% of me. When I'm with my family, it's got 100% of me. And that, right. I just feel like that's another way of what you said that made sense to me. So what is, as having a 2-year-old and a newborn, what's your role as a father now?
I think I was reading Wayne the other day, and one of his, he talks a lot about the Tao, and one of the principles in the Tao is just kind of letting things happen. And that's the very simple way to put it. But I think my point is that even in being a father, I think people see control in life. And I think sometimes, they say that you just have to let go. And life has a way of working itself out, whether it's with your relationships, with your children, or with your wife, or whoever. And I think I have to apply that to how I deal with my children too, is that, they are their own people, and I'm merely here to guide them and give them a hand when they say, Dad, can you help me? And Dad, how am I going to do this? Well, here's how I would do it. You could do it that way, or you could do it your own way, because the older we get as more experienced adults, it's like, you can't change people. And when it comes to children, you're merely there to be their guide and their cornerstone, that when they're hurt, when they're sad, you're there. When they're happy, or they're glad, or they are going through whatever, you're there, So that's my role is literally just to provide support in any way that they need support, whether it's they need food, or they need love, or they need discipline or guidance, or whatever it is. So I'm trying to still navigate how the chemistry works in the family with the new child, and how the chemistry works between the two sisters. And but it's working itself out so beautifully. And so I think what I'm here to do is just be a vessel for them to achieve their life. Their life has its own direction, its own goals. And if there's something that I can do to facilitate those goals, or to, propagate them, then that's what I'm going to do. I just have to water the plants, and they grow,
That's awesome. Something that's important to me is resilience. How do you think you can teach children to be resilient?
I think resilient is such a brilliant word, Tyler. My dad, he's one of the most resilient men in the world. I don't know how your dad is, but to me, my dad he's my definition of resilience. So that's one thing that I'm trying to exemplify, for my children, because I know how that, as a child, how I perceive that resilience of my father. And I want to be that for my children. And I think, it's important to to me, what resilience means for my children is being consistent, right? It's giving my children the time that they need. It's giving them the inspiration they need when they need it. It's giving them the tools they need when they need those tools to go on their journey. So that resilience, it will. I think that's one thing that I'm working on is trying to be a resilient father. And I think that means consistency. I think that means, it means a lot. That's a big word when it comes to being a father, is resiliency. And I never really thought about it maybe until right now, but it resides in what I do and how I do things.
It's awesome. So what's the greatest hope that you have for your children?
I think it's just that, and I think one of your other guests had mentioned this, is just to reach their potential, you know. So I think that my job in life is to reach my potential, right? Mm-hmm. And my potential is essentially limitless, you know, just like everybody's is. And my wife just stepped outside. It's making me smile.
Come say hi.
Yeah, you can come say hi. So we were talking about potential. So I think the goal is there's the new baby. It's my wife Jessica.
Hi Jessica, and what's your baby's name?
That's baby Savannah.
Hi,
about
baby
7.5 pounds. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Good job, Mama.
Oh, she's incredible. So I think reaching the potential, and I think that it's my goal for my children to reach their potential. Mm-hmm. But I think that isn't just, you know, I've thought about this in a lot of different ways, reaching potential. And I think it kind of reiterated when you talked about with one of your previous guests is my job to hold my wife accountable for her to reach her potential as a mom, as a nurse, as whoever she wants to be. It's my job to help her facilitate reaching her potential. As a friend, it's my job to help my friends reach their potential. It's my job to hold myself accountable to reach my potential, but it's also my job to help my kids reach their potential, whether it is at 3 or 5. And it's, you know, your potential is always changing. I think as you grow and as you learn. So I think that if I can do anything to help them reach their potential, whether it is, you know, if they want to be a math person, how do I help facilitate that? So it's a hard thing, but and I think one of the hardest things about trying to help people reach their potential is sometimes acknowledging the truth. You know, it's a hard thing to say, hey, listen, you know what, Brian, you weren't meant to be a pilot. You know, it's a hard realization, but it was the truth. And, you know, if you can tell your friends the truth or tell your children the truth, sometimes it's a hard truth, but you can do it in a loving way with patience and soft guidance. You know, it will maybe make them blossom into that next level of potential that they are meant for, you know.
Love it. Love it. So here's this one's a watermelon for you. Who is your favorite TV dad?
Oh boy. You know, I heard you ask this before and I'm thinking, who the heck is my favorite TV dad?
Yeah.
Because I have a couple different answers. You know, Bryan Cranston in Breaking Bad. Yeah. He's like the coolest badass dad, you know, like in that sense that if you're going to have a drug lord dad, you want him to be your dad. Yeah. And then there's, you know, like I think of like the Bob Saget, you know, in Full House. Yeah. You know, he's just like that charming, like sweet, like caring guy. He's always got that like positive voice, you know, whether or not he's that way in real life. But I grew up watching that show, you know, so I think that, I don't know if I even have like this, because I don't know. There was never a dad that really resonated with me in film and TV. And that sounds weird because I work in film and TV. Yeah. but yeah, there's so many great. Yeah. The other thing about me is, so for somebody who works in film and TV, you could be like, hey, do you remember this movie? I don't remember movies. I remember faces. I remember experiences. But it's weird. Like, people are like, oh, do you remember Jon Snow in Game of Thrones? Now, I do now because I watched that show, but you asked me in 5 years, I'm like, Jon Snow, I don't remember. And people are like, you work in the, it's so weird, but it's like, I think of my brain as a brain that is just like, it's stuck in the present. It's weird. It's so weird. And I almost think of it as a deficiency. My wife could remember a scene in a movie from 30 years ago, and she'll be like, how do you not remember this? I'm like, I don't know. It's just like, it's just like one of my character flaws, So that's like a really hard question for me. Like, oh, who's your favorite character in a movie? I'm like, I obviously have some of these things for sure written down and in cemented in my brain. But as far as TV dads go, there's a couple that stick out. But yeah, it's not like there's one who's just like, oh, Homer Simpson,
Yeah, so, done, one and done.
Yeah.
A little bit from everybody. So if you were writing a book about your life as a parent, what would the name of one or two of the chapters be?
So I think one of the chapters would be just go with it. Life takes you in all kinds of crazy directions, and your kids are going to put you in situations that you've never seen yourself in. My daughter swallowed a screw like a month ago, 2 months ago. Now it was in construction. It was a small one, and it didn't have a super sharp pointy end, but just such a scary moment. And it was like, I saw the screw sitting on the table. My wife saw it. Our grandparents saw it. And it was just one of those things, like, it hit me, but it never like, oh my, it's like, you can't get every little pebble out of the yard. You can't get every little choking hazard out of her path. Sometimes you just got to go with things. I think there would definitely be a chapter about patience, resiliency, gratitude. I think just balance. Those are some of my core guiding principles in life, and I think that being a father it's in you. People are like, how do you be a dad? It's like, I don't know. I'm being a dad because it's in me. It's my natural instinct. And so I think some of my life guiding principles are what I try to infuse into my fatherhood experience. I try to put those into being a dad and try to instill those into being a child. So I think that those are probably, the guiding principles I've talked about. Those would be some of the guiding principles in my book. Yeah.
So this is a question I got from Lewis House. When do you feel the most loved?
When I'm with my kids. And, when I wake up in the morning and my daughter says, she calls me Gaga, because for some reason she doesn't want to say Dada. She says Gaga. And when she smiles and says Gaga, and she's watching this movie, her obsession right now is the movie Trolls. I don't know if your kids have seen it, but the Trolls just love, they sing and dance and hug, and they have a thing called hug time. And so my daughter comes up to me and she says, hug time. And I mean, the amount of emotion that just flourishes in my body when she says she wants to give me a hug, it's like nothing I've ever experienced. The love from a child is so pure. I think that's what makes it so special. You have love from your partners, from your friends, from your family, but those have all been maybe convoluted through life's experiences. But the love of a child is just so pure. They don't see your flaws. They see nothing but your heart, and they just love it. And it's such a moment of glory when you can have your kids just smile at you and it's so special.
They've
It's so
got
special.
no agenda. They're just expressing.
Yeah, it's everything goes out the window.
Yeah.
And one thing I was like thinking about is, growing up in LA, and I'm not sure what it's like where you are, but LA isn't the most family friendly environment. And it's like, I find myself all the time, like promoting family and kids, right?
Yeah.
Because I feel like it has so much to offer, and it teaches you so many lessons about life, and it teaches you just the basic lessons. Yeah. And I think people are like, oh, kids are so much work and all this stuff. But like everything in life, input equals output. Mm-hmm. And what you put into them, you get out of them. You know what I mean? The love you put in, you get back. The things you teach them, they teach you. You know what I mean? So I'm always like a proponent to tell people, like, if you're thinking about having a kid and you're worried about what we're all worried about, whether or not you can afford them or whether or not you can teach them and give them love and do all this, you can do it. I'm here to be like, hey, listen, it doesn't matter about overpopulating this world. It's okay. Like, kids are a beautiful thing. And try it, because, I just have nothing but good things to say about being a dad.
Yeah. All right. So this is the billboard question. You know the billboard question? You got to
go ahead.
Yeah. What's the highway out there?
Well, we got the 405 and the 101.
So
those are the big ones.
You're on the 405. You get a billboard, a normal size billboard, to share Brian's message to all dads out there. One piece of advice: it's got to fit on the billboard. And even though you're in stop and go, you got to be able to read it at 90 miles an hour.
Well, if I can't put my movies on a billboard, and I had a message to give somebody, love is like, I talk about the cornerstones of who I am and what I do. And I think that if you can kind of sum up that gratitude, if you can sum up that patience, if you can kind of sum up, some of those things that are so important about being a dad, if you can just take that moment of frustration that you have with your child and bring love, if you can, teach them with love, if you can feed them good food with love, that is to me such a big solution to almost any problem. You can attack almost any problem with love and find a way to solve it. So I think it's two words: give love. And when you give love, you get love too. But it's not about what you get; it's about what you give. But I think that the more love that you give, and there's so much. Being a parent is so much, but that billboard, time is one of the most important things you can give a child. And I really wanted to say that today. Mm-hmm. But I think that also is kind of filtered in through give love. If you're giving love, you're giving your time. So just give love to your children. And I think love is something that is instinctual. It's in all of us. And I think that if it's something you continually work on, you can give more. And you can, you can grow that love. So it's something that I continually work on, attack those moments of frustration with love. And I think you'll find yourself better off in the end.
Yeah.
So give love.
Couldn't agree more. I think that's a great answer. If you had no constraints, no restrictions, but you could give a gift to every father on the planet, what could every father have?
I don't know that there's one tool that we could all use, because I haven't found a tool that I've used, a physical tool. What I found to be the most successful tool that I've been given is probably just my heart and my brain. And just that mentality that if you're giving your time and your love, then you're giving them everything. So I think the one tool is just to try to find another moment of love to give your children. I don't even really know if that's a clear answer. But I think it's tailored off of what we've been talking about,
Yeah, it's a great answer. And actually that long pause prior to my asking that question was a result of my thinking about asking you another one, which this continued to be a good segue into. So I'm just going to ask it. But I think in order to give love, you probably have to be vulnerable in order to give love. And I think that vulnerability, the fear of vulnerability is maybe overstated. I think that the fear that people have associated with opening themselves up to give love shouldn't be as big as it is. I understand it, but I'd like to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I don't think as many people understand vulnerability as maybe you do. It's a big thing. I don't think a lot of people understand vulnerability maybe in the way that you do. And I think that as men in this modern day and age, there's always a level of masculinity that has to be attained. But I think there's a certain value to everything. And I think that vulnerability plays a large role in giving that love. Like everything, it's a practice. And the more we practice it, the better we can get at doing those things and learning how to harness those skills. So I think practicing vulnerability is a big thing. And I can think about that when it comes to my relationship with my wife. Sometimes, she chooses to be the alpha and she makes the decisions. And sometimes I do, and it's that symbiotic relationship of finding the balance and the flow of things, of when do I need to be a vulnerable dad and when do I need to be a vulnerable husband and a vulnerable friend, and just be completely open and completely honest to giving love and to be accepting of whatever this person's going to tell me. Because I know there's going to be things down the road that my daughters tell me that I do not want to hear.
Yeah.
Whether it was they have a boyfriend or, they've done something that they didn't mean to do or they regret, and so I have to be vulnerable to those situations. And that vulnerability is going to give me the openness to present that love in the situation that is needed, to say, hey, listen, I know you went out there, you hurt that person. It's okay. Here's what we need to think about and how we need to approach it from here. What are your thoughts? I think that the masculine and the feminine need a balance in life. And I try to find that balance personally. And a big part of that balance is the vulnerability. And I think maybe that's more the feminine energy in life. But I try to explore that personally. And I find a lot of success in when I present vulnerability to my business relationships or friendships or with my children, that I can really connect and really, really dive into those situations and bring out whatever it is that needs to be brought out. So really, really good point on bringing vulnerability up, because it's something that's so powerful and we don't talk about enough.
Yeah, I think being open to feedback, being vulnerable is probably one of the biggest things that I have to actively pursue. And that's probably part of this process of why I'm motivated to have conversations like this. And I'm grateful for your spin on it. And anything that you would tell me directly to help me be more vulnerable and open to feedback with my wife, particularly because I got a big ego that gets in the way despite my trying to just be open and be open to the feedback.
I think, when I'm in those situations and I feel challenged, sometimes there was a saying that was given to me years back, and it was, sometimes being the best leader is being the best follower. And what that means to me is, if I'm alpha male B, right? Under alpha male A, right? I know that I can get a lot of what I want to accomplish in life by if the other, let's say the leader he's got this idea where he wants to go here, and he's always going to come to me as his secondary leader to ask my advice. And I know that sometimes that's the way that I can get what I want. I don't want to say get what I want in life, because it's not about that, but I can achieve things by inspiring the leaders right around me. And I think that's how I have grown to become a leader. But specifically, and I think it takes a bit of vulnerability to say, you know what, I'm happy with being second in command right now. I know that my time might not be right in this moment, but I'll have my time to be number one. When it comes to my wife, you know, I just have this mentality and this thing that says in me, like, if she asks something to me, like, I've got to do it, you know, because she's not asking because she's not the type of person who's going to ask me to do something because she just is a jerk. Mm-hmm. She's asking me to do it because she thinks it's what needs to be done, you know? So I have to respect that. And I think the first thing that hit me to give to you is in those moments of unclarity is to just stop for a second, take a breath, recenter yourself, and then go back into the situation and say, hey, okay. And it might bring about a moment of clarity and understanding of, oh, okay, now I get it. Now I understand why, you know. Just take a breath and soak in that moment, and hopefully that will bring a little bit more vulnerability into you. And again, you'll find that balance and that flow to keep you moving.
Yeah, I think that's really profound. I think you just verbalized the moments that I've had that were successful in being vulnerable, or being vulnerable first. Because sometimes when you get two egos going at it, somebody's got to step back first. And when it is me that steps back first, it's because I did do what you just said. Take the breath, step away from the circumstance, and then re-enter it with a new perspective.
Right.
That's awesome. Thank you for that. So this will be my last question.
Okay.
But first, thank you so much for your time, Brian. Awesome talking with you. Tons of wonderful things. In the event this recording continues on forever and your kids get to hear it, their kids get to hear it, you get to speak directly to them. Any messages, advice, or just thoughts, concerns, questions, comments, anything?
Well, first I want to say thank you to you, because I know how hard it is what you do. You know, you're an entrepreneur, you've got your own thing going, and what you're also trying to do is make a more positive impact in the world besides just bringing a paycheck home every week. And, you know, that's a big thing. And it's something that I personally struggle with is, you know, I focus on financials sometimes, a little too much. And I want to, you know, there's so many things that I want to be in life, and inspiration is just my biggest thing that I want to be. But looking through your page and through your website and through what you do and who you are, it's inspiring. And I'm here to say thank you for inspiring me, because I can now think back in moments in my life of what's going to bring me to the next place, and you're a part of that. So I thank you for that. And if there's something that I could leave, you know, I think I've kind of put it all out on the table. And, you know, if my kids are going to listen to this in, let's say, 20 years, the only thing I have to say is I love you guys. And I hope that you are living a life that you want to live, and that you're creating the friendships and relationships that are valuable to you. You know, and just continue to give love and be patient with life. And, you know, it's a journey. Enjoy that journey, because everybody's on it. And, you know, there's so much that life has to offer, and just continue to seek and you will find.
It's awesome. Brian Nagel. Check him out on IMDb. Check him out on Instagram. Check out Toy Box. Clown Town.
Clown Town.
It's coming up soon.
Yeah, and there's always the Katy Perry video if you want to get a good laugh.
Go check out Roar.